What's up, everybody? Did everybody hear me okay? I waited a little too long to get started this morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have my microphone set up. But you know what I did do? I got a cup of coffee. So I don't have an agenda this morning except, maybe to answer some questions. And I've got a couple questions that people have sent in that I can definitely answer. But I just like hanging out with you guys. So I've got a couple comments. Good morning, Mark Jacoby. Good morning, Cliff Latham. So, like I said, I don't have an agenda today except just maybe take some questions. And good morning, Michael. Good morning, Steve. People are coming on in. I appreciate you guys coming in. So what I thought I might do is just jump into a couple of questions. I have a list of a couple of questions that people have asked, and I think I'll answer them. Tim asked a question. He's got a question with the low end being consistent from place to place. So I'm going to try to answer that. Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Michael. So low end being different from place to place. Let's see. Probably that a lot that has to do with your monitors and knowing what to listen on. To be honest with you, I'll be completely honest with you. I've got a really expensive set of studio monitors. One of the tweeters is blown, and I'm a little afraid of how much that's going to cost, given how much the monitors are. And then I've got another set of monitors that I drive around, and that is a 2008 Honda Element, and I love the monitors in there, and I get to drive it around. It's got nice wheels on it, nicest wheels of any monitors I've got. I've got a set of $50 headphones that I love to listen to low end on. I think getting low end to sound consistent from place to place is all about how you triangulate the mix. Because you might have a set of headphones like this. These are Bose Quiet Comfort 35s that aren't hooked up, obviously. Which, why are they doing on my desk if they're not hooked up? And I know what they will tell me about the low end. They're going to be a little puffy, and then the Yamaha, which is the $50 set of headphones, the Yamaha RH-M5As, they're going to be extreme on the low end and extreme on the top end. They're very hypey, and they usually, if I can get the bass right in those, then it will sound good on everything else. Now, what I used to do was mix it on a set of NS10s, and I still have them, but I had a sub hooked up to them. And I had the sub hooked up to where my favorite records sounded nice and tight on those. And then I knew that if I listened to my mix on those and the low end was tubby on them, I needed to work on them. I would go and I would just kind of remember yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I was talking about how if you're Columbo and you're trying to get to the bottom of, why something happened, you don't just ask one person and go with the truth on that, right? Because that person has opinions about stuff and they have a certain bent that they're going to tell you, and they're going to tell you their version of the story, right? So the best thing you can do is ask several people what happened, and then you can go, okay, these two are common here, and these two are completely different. So what's the difference in those two? And then from doing the Columbo style, you kind of learn who's telling the truth and what version of the truth. So to get consistent low end, you've got to find a set of monitors that tells you a story about the low end. Now, you're not going to get low end from this guy, right? Except for if it's distorting or not. Because if you've got a ton of like, maybe Kevin will agree with me here. If you got a ton of 30 hertz, which, what we learned from last week from Kevin is that's the magic bump that he puts in the kick that gives it that air. Well, you're not going to hear it on this. This one not only doesn't tell you the story, it didn't even know there was a story to tell, right? So yeah. You've got to triangulate what story. Kevin says the listening environment has everything to do with that. Bad room, bad sound. I agree with that. But not everybody has a good room. So I can tell you a couple things, and maybe I'll jump on that a little bit. I can tell you a couple things about how to improve your room also. But let's talk about low end real quick. So I would listen to your. This is why it's so important to have a reference mix. And by the way, I talk about this for 25 minutes on MixCoach.com. If you just go to MixCoach.com, there's this. And I talk about this, about how reference mixing. I always took mixes and listened to it. Like if I would listen to a mix and I would see a video on MTV, or I'm dating myself a little bit, back when MTV actually played music, when I would listen to a song on TV and I would like it, or I would buy the CD, again, dating myself, and I would like it, and then I would listen to it on the radio and like it, I would use that mix as a reference. And I would say, if I can get my low end to sound like this, I would be happy with my mix. And for the longest time, I used Kevin's mixes to do that. But use a reference mix for your low end. And that's how you get it sounding consistent from place to place, because when you take that mix that has, in your opinion, near perfect low end, and you take it to all these places and it sounds great, but then you take it to your studio and you're comparing your mix to that and you're going, I like my low end better, then there's a red flag that should go up, right? Because you've already proven that mix sounds better. So if you want more consistent low end, do a couple of things. We'll talk about those this morning. Triangulate your mixes on different monitors and see how they sound. The second thing is use a reference mix that has that low end that you like, and try to make sure that your mix and that mix sounds different. And here's a ninja trick, I think. Take the mix that you like, your reference mix, and your mix, put them on the same reference, like drop them both in the Dropbox. And even if you're going next level, cut between them. Listen to the difference between the reference mix in your Honda Element or on your headphones, and listen to the difference in all those and go, okay, this is the difference in that, and then go and try to fix that. Now, you're not going to be able to fix it overnight, but you'll be able to definitely make strides forward overnight. I'll tell you one little trick, and this will lead me into the room thing that Kevin mentioned too. I remember when I was in my studio in Tennessee, I was listening to a mix, and I was close to a corner in a doorway, and I was like, wow, my mix really sounds like really big and like loose right here on the low end. And then I would put one of my other favorite reference mixes on, and I would listen to it, and I would go, but theirs does not, which I was able to use the bad parts of my room to help me improve my mix, right? So anyway, let's see. Cool MixCoach hat. I made these. He wants to know how we can get a MixCoach hat. I don't have any more like this. I made these specifically for my first MixCoach experience weekend. There's only a few people that have these hats. I need to make some more. They're kind of cool looking. My wife doesn't like it because it's got a flat bill, and she says it looks too California, but I don't know how flat bill hat looks California, but I guess it does. Okay, let me jump over to another acoustic thing that might help you with your low end, okay? Kevin said bad room equals bad sound. I agree with that to a large extent. And here's a way that you can fix your room. When I have a friend who was going to help me design my room, and I was going to make it this multi-sided, no square surfaces sort of thing. And he said, with the size of your room, that will not work. You will not like that, because what happens when you put a deep corner in something is there's a lot of bass buildup that happens there. And it takes a lot of real estate to correct that. So he said, your best bet is to go with a square room. And I know you've heard, don't do that, but I'm just telling you, on a budget, it's probably the best thing to do. And I'll tell you how to, how your guitar, hang on a second, let me show you something. On this bass guitar, it has these things at the top, right? These are the tuners. These tighten the strings and they loosen the strings. your room has those points in it, and they're in the corners. Base buildup happens in the corner. What you want to do is trap as much of that base as you can. And how you trap a base is by putting a base trap in the corner, and you could build that pretty easily. You just shove a couch in the corner or a mattress. You don't want to do that, but when you put a couch in the room and it's in the corner, the bottom corner, the corners are not necessarily like straight out and straight up like this corner here. They're not all high. The corners are in the low end too. So when you put a couch in your room, that is a base trap, because base has to go through all the material in that couch, ever how dense or light it is. The heavier the couch, the better. And it goes through there, and it goes to the corner, and it tries to come back out, bounce back out. It has to go through the couch again, right? So when you put a couch in your room or any furniture like that, that's absorptive. That's helping your room. In the corners, the best thing you can do is go buy some rock wool. Rock wool is a dense insulation made of, I guess, rocks and some kind of dense fiber. But anyway, if you put that in the corner, cover it with some fabric, your room, you just put one of these on your room, right? When you put them in the top corners, look at every corner of your room and try to trap as many as you can. And it doesn't matter what size. My friend told me, different size base traps are good. And then you think, am I trapping too much base? In my opinion, and these are just my opinions, right? In my opinion, you can't trap too much base, because if you can trap the base that your room is trying to amplify and deceive your ears on, then the more accurate what's actually coming out of your speakers is. So just a couple of quick tips. Put a couch in your room. Some people I've even seen, stand their mattress up, a twin size mattress in the corner. That's a base trap. What I did in my studio in Nashville was I took rock wool and shoved it into the corner, built a little bracket so that it would stay in the corner, and then I just covered that with the material. It looked great, and the room actually, it sounded really good. So yeah, and Kevin says avoid parallel walls. Another quick tip about that. And the way you can avoid parallel walls is not necessarily the walls are exactly parallel. I mean, in a perfect world, yes, you would probably build the walls to be, so that you wouldn't get a standing wave. But a quick way to do that, because most rooms that you would build, you don't build custom. I mean, if you build your own studio, that's a cool thing too. But most people, what they have to do is they have to take a square room and retrofit it. So what you can do to avoid those parallel walls is to treat one wall with an insulation or something that would refract sound. I've seen people do it where you I saw this yesterday and I thought it was really cool. Take a 4x4 and cut it in different lengths and put it and glue it to the wall or whatever. And that way there is no surface on that wall that would reflect straight back to the other wall. So when you've ever gone into an empty room and you clapped your hands and you hear that, that's called a flutter echo. That's what you're trying to get rid of, and you're trying to minimize those as much as possible. So the original question was, how do you get more consistent low end in the mix? And that's one of the things to do. Reference your mix, triangulate your mix between different resources. Even 2 sets of monitors is better, and know what to listen for in each monitor. And the last thing would be, get your room right. The room is probably going to be the most one of the most expensive, unless you buy a set of rolling monitors like I've got, that you really that you happen to trust. That's cool. But other than that, treat your room, even just treat the corners and keep the parallel walls. And that's kind of the 80-20 of doing that sort of thing right there, of getting more consistent low end. Let's see. Here's a cool comment from Cliff. I said I have a ways to go in mixing. What really helped me was to have one of my songs mixed professionally. That allowed me to be familiar enough with each element to hear exactly what was taking place. Still got work to do to get to your level. Oh, thank you. But it saved me years of trial and error. So yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, that's what I did. I mentioned it 2 days ago when I talked about when I lived in North Carolina and I came to Nashville and I got Steve Marcantonio to mix something. I got him to mix because I was familiar with the stuff. I was intimately familiar with it because I had recorded everything that he was mixing, and I saw what he had to do and undo that I did. Little workflow things that I learned from him. I mean, to me, that's one of the quickest ways you can do is actually get some, and I don't mean this a pun, but get some mix coaching, right? Send somebody your mix and let them do it, and make sure you pick somebody that's like Kevin and Blake and some of these guys that mix, who aren't afraid or insecure, and they'll share what they know with you. Because, talked about this yesterday with Scott Williamson. I appreciate guys who are open and willing to teach stuff. So anyway, okay. So if you're here and you haven't said hello yet, don't be rude. Say hello in the comments. Let me know you're here. I can't see you, Kevin. Love you, bro. The hats I've got are not like this. So just so you know, when I need to do some hats like this and show you guys where they are. Maybe I'll think about that. If you got any questions, post them in the comments. I answered one. This was the question of like consistent low end. Okay. So Rob wants to know, I'd like to know what your go-to effects are. Not necessarily the exact plugin, but the application to achieve greater depth. I don't know that I can go into all of that, but I will be glad to show you not show you because I don't have my DAW open, but I'll be glad to share with you kind of what I'm doing a little bit. Let's talk about drums. Go-to effects. For me, one of the things I do on drums is I do parallel compression. And that is basically I set up, like a reverb, I set up a compressor. And it's usually a DBX 160. And I'll run my snare. Sometimes I'll run my kick through there a little bit, but mostly it is my kick. And again, I learned this from Steve Marcantonio. I run a little bit of kick, snare, and my toms. Usually not as much kick as toms and snare. And then I'll run that through a DBX 160X or 160, and then I'll return it as if it's a reverb. So I'll get the drum sound like I want it, and then I'll sneak up the I call it my smack channel. Have you seen any one of my templates or tutorials or anything like that, you'll know that I call it smack, and I don't know why. But I will use that as an effect. And then lately what I've been doing is I've been using the Universal Audio EMT 140 plate, and I use the middle one. There's an A, B, and C. I use the B one just because I think it sounds the best. And I know that Capitol has, I think they have at least 3, and they have A, B, and C also. And the B one sounds like the B one at Universal Audio. I don't know if they meant to do that or not, but I just think that the B one sounds better. I used to use an EMT 250. I don't know what happened to that, but I don't use it anymore. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. But so EMT 250 or 140, those are both great. I've even had good luck with the Deverb from Avid. I've used it on several tutorials, and it's just it seems to get better with time. I love anything from Bacasti. I don't have I just went through a new computer upgrade and shortly after that a computer crash, and so I don't have all of my plugins loaded in like I have had in the past, and that's probably not a bad thing. So I use that EMT 240, EMT 250, 140, and so that's what I do on drums, and then I'll even take the drum bus and I'll even compress it a little bit more. So as far as verbs, that's what I use on drums. There's not really a go-to. I think my thing right now is the Valhalla vintage verb. It's $50, I think, and it's an amazing sounding reverb for $50. I use that on instruments and vocals. I have two separate. I have a lot of times I have separate verbs for background vocals and lead vocals, and it's not necessarily because I want to treat them with different verbs. It's just that with my workflow, what I usually do is I'll print the background vocals separately from the lead vocals, and I don't want the lead vocal to be carrying over into the background vocal verb. It's just that sort of workflow sort of thing. Let's see. Mark says, is there a phase issue between the aux and the original track? Not if you have delay compensation on your DAW. Most DAWs do have that. I would definitely listen to that though. And you listen to that like a snare. If you hear a little flam, you should be okay. Sometimes what you can do is, like if you have a drum bus and you have a parallel bus, is just put the same plugin chain on each one. That way there's the same amount of delay. But I haven't noticed if you turn delay compensation on. I hardly ever noticed anything. It's pretty obvious when you hear kind of a chorusing or like a flamming sort of thing on the return that you have a problem. Usually there's a tick box that you can click in your preferences that will turn on delay compensation, and that's what it does. Every plugin that you put into your DAW, whether you can hear it or not, causes the delay. And that delay, if you don't compensate for it or let the computer compensate for it, it will cause your tracks to not sound tight. I talked about this 2 days ago. If you look at my live broadcast that I did from my studio a couple of days ago, Wednesday, I talked about how I delayed phase between the overheads and the snare, overhead toms, overhead kick, and I delayed them all individually, and I did that with a plugin. And when I put the plugin in, if you notice, the plugin has a native delay built into it, a 4 frame or 4 not frames. I've been doing too much video editing. 4 samples, and you have to compensate for that. Now, most DAWs, like I said, will compensate for that. So let's see. Okay, I'm still taking questions. This may be a short one if you guys don't have any questions. I will go back to my, I've already answered two questions that I had. If you're watching this later, go back to the first question was about low end. Second question was about reverb. So I just got hanging out with you guys. I really do. I'm going to look up here. Okay, Mark, another question here. I'm working with an artist on the East Coast. How can we connect either audio-wise or MIDI-wise? How can he play through my virtual instruments here in California? What software is needed, if possible at all? You know what? This is funny. You should bring this up, Mark, because I have been researching and reaching out to Steinberg because Cubase has just come out with this thing called VST Connect Pro, I think. And me and my buddy Chris Sellum over at Mixdown Online have been talking about this. Chris and I are going to be chatting here pretty soon, and I have a feeling that we're going to be experimenting with this. It looks like Steinberg has the jump on everybody right now. Everybody's kind of alluded to it. It looks like Steinberg may have an answer to it. I saw a demo of it yesterday. Steinberg has this thing called Cubase Performer VST. I don't know what it's called. You don't have to have Cubase to be a performer. Like Chris could call me, and if I had an interface here, I could plug my bass up and do an overdub for him. And I don't have to have Cubase to do it. Only the performer side of it, which is a free download. You create an account. you make sure your internet's good, and then you find them as a friend or connect with them, and they're able to send you the 2 mix, just like a headphone mix. They're able to send you the headphone mix. You're able to plug in, select which mic you're using, and overdub in real time, and they hear it in real time. And then when you're done with the session, from what I understand, it's all low res stuff while you're listening to it. And then when you close the session, it downloads the high res stuff from their computer, which I think is brilliant. And honestly, I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. I've reached out to Steinberg, and I have never used Cubase to any extent. And I'm hoping with Chris's tutelage and the software in my hand, I'll be able to do this. So Mark, hang in there, man. There is a way coming, I think, that's going to be, looks like pretty reliable, and I hope everybody else jumps on board, because there's nothing like a lockdown and keeping you locked out from everybody that makes you want to invent stuff like this, right? Or get it going, right? Tim, that's the one, man. Same one, 1976 Stingray, my baby. I've got a 77 Jazz that I'm getting worked on right now. That was my father-in-law's, and he is a 13th Street guitar guy. It's just unfortunate that. Can y'all hear that? It's just unfortunate that I took that Jazz the day before the lockdown started, and the 13th Street guitar guy is just like, closing shop for ever how long it takes. So I can't wait to get it back. But this is so fun to play. It wants to sit in my lap all day. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. So anyway, let's see. I'm going to read this cold here. Sonic Solution. I did a cool experiment. I ran reverb through PA speakers in my little room to records. Really made the room sound bigger. Just a touch of room verb came out nice and mics. That sounds pretty cool. I'm going to have to try that. So just to clarify the Sonic Solution, you ran verb from, say, like a snare drum out into the room, and then you mic'd the room as the room, and then you return that. I'd like to get some clarity out of that, because that sounds pretty cool. Let me know in the comments. Chris Latham said that sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to doing some experiments like that. I've used audio movers to send mixes, and I think that that's a cool thing. I've had guys that really use the audio movers listen to, which is like how you put a plug-in across your master mix, master bus, or whatever you want to send the people on the other end, and they're able to just to go to a URL and listen. But there's another plugin they make that will allow you to put that mix in your DAW, which you would think that you could be able to overdub. But from what I understand, the delay is not manageable. But from what I've seen from this Cubase VST Connect Pro, I think is what it's called, Connect Performer. I get the terminology mixed up. Somebody paste a link in the comments. It would be a big favor. According to that, what I'm hearing, I don't know how they do it. It's some kind of magic trick, I guess. That seems to have solved the problem. And to think about it, I guess they would just have to figure out the delay compensation on each side. I don't know. I'm going to get to the bottom of it, though. Tim Fugit says, are you familiar with the Shure SRH 840 headphones? If so, thoughts? I'm sorry, Tim. I'm not familiar with those. I can tell you what I have and what I am familiar with. I have a set of Sonys. I haven't used those in a while. They're CD 2000s, I think. They were about a $300 pair of headphones. I've got Quiet Comfort 15s. I've got Quiet Comfort 35s. I've got a set of Grado RS2s, which I love. They just hurt my ear right here after I wear them for a little while, but they sound great. I have the Yamaha RHM5As, which I think you can still get them. They're like $50, and they're worth every penny of it, in my opinion, because there's a hypey top end, and there is which is good to know, because if you're going to get sibilance, you're going to hear it for sure on that. Let's see, what else have I got? It's pretty much it that I reference. I've got a set of, I think, Fostax, but I wouldn't use them for, I wouldn't use them to mix on, I don't think. They're not, they don't make mixing fun. Nothing ever really sounds good on those to me. They're great for singing because they all match, right? And when I used to record a lot. So let's see. Blake says, I know you've talked about LUFS and RMS metering on your master. Wave has its WLM loudness meter plug-in on sale for $35. That's a good deal, guys. If you're not metering your master faders, this is a good one. And then he even went so far as to put the link there. Thanks, Bennett. And if you go to the comment section, you should be able just to click on that link. Depending on that's on Facebook. I don't know about YouTube, the YouTubes. So yeah, I reloaded WLM in my DAW yesterday, and it's I got the great opportunity to go and check out a big production, a television show from a friend of mine who works there. It was a Jimmy Kimmel show. And I got to hang out in the audio booth where he was mixing the show. And what did he have pulled up right there but a WLM? And he was looking at, I forget what the number is he was looking for, minus 23 or minus 24. And he would not let the level go below that, and he wouldn't let it go above that because they get fined if they go above a certain LUFS. And LUFS stands for loudness units full scale. So it's basically RMS. It's basically loudness. So I started doing that with my volunteers at church, and that's when I went through the computer crash and never got the plugin reloaded. I got it reloaded yesterday, and it's great. What I have been using instead is just the Klanghelm. What was it called? The Klanghelm meters, LUMT or something like that. It's like maybe $20. I'm sure that any VU meter will help you. Just set it to K14 or K12, and that will make sure that your meter, when you get it to 0, you're in good shape. Your peaks are going to be what they're going to be. You can peak limit those, but get your RMS level up. And Blake, that's a cool deal on that. Mark says, tell us your thoughts on using speakerphone on your mix, which we are considering doing. It sounds like a good reference. Mark, I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's necessarily what it's designed to do, and I can't wait to check it out. And I know that when we get started mixing your stuff again, we'll probably use that, and maybe I'll do a tutorial on it and show you guys my thoughts, maybe even live, if we can get the audio going to this as good as it sounds in a tutorial. So Stephen Klein, I find that high passing bass at 90 to 120 is cleaning up my mixes. Any comments? I high pass the bass a lot, especially to clean it up, because this guy right here has a ton of low end in it. And if you've got a bass player that is not, his right hand is kind of floppy and he doesn't contain the low end, it can get out of control pretty quick. So I filter the bass all the time. Seriously. I've even done a thing on the Waves C6 where I will compress those frequencies down there too. I'll do it with plosives too. When people pop in a microphone, I'll set a compressor for the low end, and it will compress that stuff. And also, I downloaded per several suggestions the Soothe plugin, and I don't really know enough about it right now to know to tell you. I do like it. I don't know how to use it that much yet. I'm just sticking to presets right now, but that will take away plosives too. It'll compress that instead of filtering it. And what you may want to do, Steve, is experiment between filtering stuff, which I think works great. Just make sure that if you don't have monitors that will tell you when you took that away, sometimes you will come too high on the filter. But I think between 90 and 120, 120 sounds a little high. But I would probably go that high. And when you start to hear it the low end go away, I would back it back about halfway, but you're still trying to clean it up. So either a multi-band compressor or a filter will work just fine on that. That's good. Let's see. Okay, so this is Sonic Solution again, and he was saying yes, that's what he does. He sends a verb send, or not a verb return, to speakers in studio, and then he will mic that up for the room with verb, which sounds pretty. I never would have thought about that. I mean, I used to send like a dry signal out there. But that sounds really cool. I may have to give that a try. He says, yeah, in Pro Tools, I sent a pre-fader send to Abbey Road's plate and sent it out to speakers via the PA in my little drum room. The verb sounds better as recorded air than as a digital insert. Now that makes sense because we used to do that with cymbals, like when we would back when samples weren't as good as they are now. We would take drum machine stuff and we'd take the cymbal stuff and send it out to the room and then record the room. So it sounded more roomy and it didn't sound so digital, I guess. And this sounds like what you're doing with the Abbey Road stuff. That's pretty cool. I'll tell you one thing I did use on the Universal Audio stuff, and that is and I think I talked about it with somebody, it's the Ocean Way plugin. It's not really a verb. It's really a room simulator. I mean, and not room in the sense of like, this is our digital emulation of a room, actual IRs or impulse responses from a room at Ocean Way. And I took, when I was recording, I was recording a project where I did everything in my studio in Nashville. We didn't go outside the studio for anything. So what I did was I took actually it was the overheads. I took the overheads for a couple songs, and then I took a room mic and I ran it straight through that Universal Audio room plug-in. And because it records it in real time with no latency, I actually printed that, and it was like the best. I mean, it really brought the drums to life. If you're trying to bring drums to life, that's the way to do it. Like the room mics. That's one other thing. I talked about emailing Chris Lord-Alge back in the day, and he emailed me back before he became, associated with waves and all that kind of stuff. And probably, when he had a little bit more time, he actually emailed me back. And that's one of the things that I just remembered that he mentioned that could bring drums to life, and that's the room. He said, your drum room mics are kind of what's given the drums life. Now, there's certain sounds that you don't want any drum, like that 70s, that trendy sort of thing happened in the 70s, and even happened now, where you just want that thud of a snare and you don't want any overheads in there, really. That's not, sometimes you want that. Sometimes you want the drums to feel like they were all in a room, and that's the way to do it, is pull the room mic up. Let's see. Tim says, what program are you using to live stream? I'm using this program called StreamYard, and I love it because you can get a free version, but you can only go to one outlet or one destination. And I could either go to YouTube or Facebook. With what I'm paying for, I get 2 destinations, and I think it's like $20 a month. And I can go to Facebook and YouTube, or I can go to a Facebook private page, which I've got. This is one thing I'm going to do next week. I'm going to do some lighting training for my volunteers at church. I've got everything set up, and I will think about it and think about what I want to cover. But I found out from doing this for the last 3 weeks, going on 4 weeks now, that I love it when people show up and they ask questions and get to hang out with my buddies and talk shop for a while. I love that. And I feel that it ignites something in me that I don't get when I try to sit down and pre-record that. So I'm going to go live to maybe YouTube, and then go live to my church volunteer page also at the same time. That way it's there. It just lives there when you're done. You don't have to edit it, upload it, all that kind of stuff. Changes. It's been a game changer for me. There's another couple of things like this, Tim, if you're wanting to do this sort of thing. StreamYard's great. I use it. It's great. Ecamm Live, ECAMM is another thing, but you download the software to do it there. I like this because it's browser based, and I can go live from my laptop, which is what I'm doing right now, with this Yeti microphone over here, or the mic on this, or I can go to my studio, open the browser in Chrome on my studio computer, and I'm also able to go live from there. And except for the scene change in the back, you don't really know the difference on your end. So there's another, Ecamm Live, you have to download the software. This is browser based. There's another thing that I heard about a couple of days ago. I was consulting with a church and kind of hoping, trying to help them come up with a new workflow for going live. Because if you go to a church and you're not going live, you better get with it, man. You better get with it, because church is not going to be the same after this. And people are going to be depending on live for a long time. And if you're just expecting things to go back to normal, I don't think they're going to go back to the normal we knew, if ever, for a long time. So if you're not going live, try out some solutions like this. The reason I chose this is because the interface is great. It's a lot cleaner than the YouTube Live or the Facebook Live. It's just easier. There's another one called BeLive, BeLive, and it will do the same thing as this. I took a quick look at it. I thought this StreamYard was so much better. And there's I can invite people on the fly. It just works. It just works, Tim. You should try it. You said you're a worship pastor and you would love to be a part of all that. You need to be, man. You can even, I'm going live with this Yeti Blue microphone. It's a USB microphone, but you could take your audio interface and send out your mix to this thing. As far as I know, I've never done it yet, but you could probably do that too, and just do a worship set live from this. Of course, your iPhone speaker is really good too. It's really good. So as long as you are pretty close to your mic and your room sounds pretty good, which we covered in the first part of this this live thing, you should be good, man. Let me know if you need any help. Okay, reach out. Let's see. Just to finish up Tim's thing here, we've been pre-recording and premiering in YouTube on Facebook. We're doing the same thing. Now for that, we're using something else at church. I don't do that personally here, but I do have an account with this thing called Restream.io. It's a service where you can upload a video and do the video as if it were live or simulated live. And it's like $25 a month too, and you can go to 2 destinations. You can do a free one, and you can go to 1 destination, and they brand it. Same thing with this; they'll brand it with their logo. If you don't do the paid account, which is smart, but anyway. So yeah, try those out. Reach out, Tim, if you need some help, man. Sonic Solution. I definitely like to try it with an IR Talk reverb, but it's pretty wild. Even playing in the room with the added verb, you can literally dial in the size of the room, make a bedroom into a venue. That's what I did, man. When I was in my studio in Nashville, I ran a dedicated mic that was in front of the drums as if it were the drum room. And if you close your eyes, you'd think you're at Ocean Way. Because, if you've got a pretty clean signal path, this is a big difference between the studios. Like working in my home studio, and working at a studio like Capitol or the Sound Kitchen or Ocean Way or something like that. The difference is, they've got clean signal path. If you've got a good mic, and they're all pretty good mics, to be honest with you, they're all pretty good mics, and you've got a decent preamp and a good way to record it, you've got the same thing they've got. What you don't have is all of that acoustic treatment. and all of that, the control room stuff. And between treating your room and being able to use IR responses and being able to load it into something like that and simulate the room, that's the kicker. And then using the speakerphone thing, which I'm really interested in hearing when me and Mark get this worked out. So yeah, that's the big difference that I have found with big studios and working in your own space is the sound of the room. If you get pretty close to that with plugins, then do it. Okay, so it looks like we've had a pretty good conversation here. Looking back through if I'm missing a comment, paste it below. Okay, I'm going to look. Michael Rafter, good to have you. Are you finished with your bagel yet? Or I don't even know if you're still on yet. So say hey in the comments if you haven't already. We're about to wrap this up. I'm glad this is just a Q&A day, right? Let's see. So let me go ahead and mention what's going on next week. I've got some really exciting stuff happening next week. So I talked to my buddy Graham Cochran this week, and it looks like he's going to be on the show Monday. Be looking for some an email or something for that. So we're going to talk to Graham. If you've got questions for Graham, if you don't know him already, he runs a website called The Recording Revolution. He is a brilliant guy, a brilliant man, a great mixer, and I'm looking forward to talking to him. He's a buddy of mine, and looking forward to having him on the show and talking shop. And then I've got another couple. I may have Bjorn on the show next week. He runs a website called audio-issues.com. He's another great mixer, a really good resource of information. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't have the days exactly yet. So if you've got questions for those two, save them up. Let's ask them in the comments next week. Okay. I'll be posting when those shows come out. If you're not subscribed to the MixCoach channel or subscribed to Facebook and getting the notifications, that's really the best way to get the notifications, unless you're on the email list. And I don't even send those out before every show. I didn't send one today. So subscribe to the channel, get the notifications. I don't go live more than one time a day, and you won't be notified unless you're on that channel. So one other thing, I cover a lot of this referencing, triangulating your mix, using reference mixes, all on this resource on MixCoach.com. If you're not on that, I think it's a great resource. I put a lot of time into it, and I think it'll help. So check it out. Okay. One more thing. For your information, best overhead sounds I've ever heard is using those little Audio-Technica boundary mics to the sides of the kit. Excellent detail in the high end. Excellent. I haven't done that before, but I have. He says he believes that they're the 851A Omnis. I used to do something like that when I recorded at Hilltop. When I first moved to Nashville, that was kind of my first gig. I was a house engineer there. And we used to have these little mics that we would put on the drum room windows, and we would use those as kind of like room mics. If you've got a drum room and it's not a big room, sometimes you have to do something like what Sonic Solutions is saying here, and kind of emulate a room. We would super compress it and print it and call it a drum room. It sounded good. That's good insight, man. I appreciate you guys chiming in. Really good stuff. I honestly appreciate every comment, every person that shows up. I love it, and I hope this is helpful. I know it's fun for me, and I'm loving it. So, hey, I'm gonna call it a day for now. I'm gonna go for now, and maybe I'll play you a bass tune next time if I get my bass mic'd up. Anyway, I will talk to you guys not tomorrow. I'll see you guys Monday. Okay, have a good one. See you guys.